killed by a shot in the head or a heavy blow to the skull.
Hey, true believers, Chris Mack coming at you with Comictopia After Dark. And the movie that we're going over tonight really kind of gave me some hope. As I'm watching it, I'm sitting here thinking, how much Cage could Nicolas Cage if a Cage could Cage? And you're asking yourself, what does that even mean? Well, just sit down, buckaroo. We'll get into that in a minute. Through this whole craziness in the world that's been going on, there's not been a whole lot of modern films coming out that have really got me excited, and I felt empty inside rewatching old films, thinking that there's no new creativity out there in the world. But thankfully, this movie, Willy's Wonderland, helped me out immensely. This is one of those films where people know horror film is formulaic and it's getting a little redundant. There's very few horror films that I've seen that can still really shake you to your core. I've seen a few, but not as much as to say like the 70s and the 80s. And so I think a lot of them are starting to understand that in order to kind of get some scariness, you got to throw a little bit of silliness in this. And we found that in the Banana Splits movie that we went over a while back. And Willy's Wonderland is kind of in the same vein. People keep calling it Nicolas Cage versus Five Nights at Freddy's. I've never played Five Nights at Freddy's. I don't intend to play Five Nights at Freddy's. So we're not even going to go down that avenue. So if you're looking for a movie that you just want to turn your brain off to, crack open a cold beer, have some popcorn, and just tune everything out that's going on, then this is the movie for you. Now, Nicolas Cage plays this character called the Janitor, and he enters this backwater town. We're not really given the name of it that I can think of off the top of my head. He's driving in this really kick-ass hot rod, blows out his tires, and he has to get towed. Now, gets paid, he gets fixed. He goes to pay the man. He says, no plastic, I only take cash. Well, conveniently, the ATM is out of order. And so he says, how about you work it off instead? Now, this is where the movie for me got interesting, because at the beginning, Nick Cage isn't saying a word. I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe this is just a way to kind of rev everybody up. But up to this point, Nicolas Cage still has not said anything. Everything he does is through the actions, like his body movements and the way he moves, like the eye movement to the way he stares at people, that conveys how he's feeling. And as I said, Nicolas Cage Cajun, we'll get some more Cage here in a second. So we are introduced to this dilapidated playground called Willy's Wonderland. Now, when I saw the building in the film, it subverted what I thought the trailer was about. I thought this was going to be another one of those films that's trying to capitalize on the nostalgia of the 80s. But thankfully, that's not the case. Instead, they show modern day and how the 80s and all the quote-unquote innocence of it is in the past and gone. And the way Willy's Wonderland inside looks, it is nasty, nasty, nasty. This character named Tex McAdoo, played by Rick Wrights, he tells Nicolas Cage that if you clean up my building, I'm getting ready to reopen this place, then we'll make sure your hot rod's fixed and you can go on your merry way. So Nick Cage goes to town. I mean, thoroughly cleaning this place, almost to the point where you're just thinking, you're a little obsessed, buddy. And so for the first half of the film where Nicolas Cage is just moving through, we start seeing little quips. His stopwatch keeps going off and he keeps drinking this stuff called Punch Pop. And it makes no sense. And then we see a pinball machine. And the way that he looks at it, it gets a little borderline uncomfortable. Because that type of look is something you say for when you meet someone, say at a bar, etc., so forth. And he begins to clean it, starts playing it. And again, just the movements of his eyes and his body motions. You don't need Nicolas Cage to do all his normal tropes. Now, what did I mean by how much Cage could Nicolas Cage if a Cage could Cage? I want you to say that 5 times fast. The way he's killing these robots, the way that he's just fixated on the pinball machine, his eyes, he gets those Nicolas Cage eyes, and he starts actually dancing to the pinball machine. And so even though he doesn't talk, and a lot of people saying that this isn't really Nicolas Cage's best performance, I think it is, because he hasn't said one word, and he's able to convey everything through body motion and eye contact. And to me, that's the signs of a damn good actor. And it adds to the overall way of how this movie's corny and yet scary. And what I mean by that is why he's cleaning, the animatronics start to move. And the way it's shot, you can actually see how just the slow movements building up the suspense until an explosion of Nicolas Cage fighting an ostrich. And the way he punches it, you can tell that it looks fake. But nonetheless, the whole idea of it is what makes this movie awesome. And as he's punching into this thing, there's nothing but oil flying left and right. Nicolas Cage getting covered in it. So instead of blood like you'd see like in the banana splits, you're thinking, oh wow, this looks so horrifying, but it's motor oil. And then after he's done, he just throws the bodies in trash bags, puts them by the door, and continues to clean. Again, no context to why he's so fixated on cleaning this place, other than you're thinking, okay, maybe it's because he wants his car. At first, my personal opinion, I thought maybe is because this was like tied something to his childhood, or maybe his family was a victim to it. But we get no such answers. And that's another thing that makes this movie special, because no answers are given. Until we meet some of the town folk, we're introduced to Liv Hawthorne, who's played by Emily Tosta. She's trying to burn this place down, and at the beginning, no context whatsoever. And then we're introduced to her mom, grandma, we're not sure at this point, who's Eloise Lund. She's the town sheriff, and she's played by Beth Grant. She grabs Liv, throws them in their trailer, and chains her to the wall. And you're thinking, wow, what a bitch. And so that's as far as answers as we get at this point. Now later, her buddies do come and break her out. And to me, when I met her friends, I didn't even bother learning their names, because just like when I was talking about the banana splits, there's no depth given to these guys. As much as the director tried, these characters, I felt, failed. So to me, this is just the meat or the cast of victims. And I think the reason that they were introduced is because as we go through, each time Nicolas Cage destroys an animatronic and keeps continually cleaning up the place, you're thinking, man, this guy's indestructible. Now, I personally could have gone through this whole film with just Nicolas Cage beating the shit out of these things. But we still have to get more horror aspects in. So Liv explains that she needs to save the guy that is inside Willy's Wonderland, because there's a scene where you see Tex chain Nicolas Cage inside this place. And he starts to know something's awry when he's trying to push the door open to go to the dumpster, and he can't get out. But he doesn't freak out. He just goes back to what he's doing. Now, when the kids enter the scene, this is where we get the slaughter. And again, because these kids have no dimension whatsoever, you don't care if they die. But they have the regular tropes where if you have premarital sex, you die. If you're more into smoking weed, you die. So all the tropes that the 80s set, that is on display here. The kills are interesting. I'll give them that. But it was just a waste of screen time in my personal opinion. Now, I do like that as the film progresses, we finally do get some answers about the town, about how this was originally run by serial killers and how there was ritual sacrifices and ritual suicide. So in a sense, this reminds me of Child's Play. What am I talking about? You'll have to watch the movie. But overall, the Willy's Wonderland, it really reinvigorated me to see that a movie made, I think it was in 2020, and it was directed by Kevin Lewis. No, it came out February of this year. I thought it was 2020. At least gives me a little bit of hope that people still understand some aspect of horror. Just how Sam Raimi decided to make Evil Dead 2 more comedic compared to the first one, which was, didn't have a budget, but c'est la vie. They understand that a good set of comedy can also offset some really interesting horror. So that's my analysis and review of Willy's Wonderland. What do you guys think? I really highly suggest that you pick this up. I'd say go to your local video store, but what's a video store anymore? So however you guys can get your hands on Willy's Wonderland, highly recommend it. It's one of those ones where if you love kind of a cheesy, tropey, B-rated horror, this will be the movie for you. So with that said, if you've enjoyed this review. We really would appreciate if you take a moment to hit like, share, and subscribe. Helps the club channel more than you could possibly know. And if you won't mind hitting that fancy little Willy bell next to subscribe, that way as we continue to upload content, you guys get notified. Come to the channel, and we love talking cinema with you guys down in the comments below or our social media pages, which I'll make sure to leave the links down in the description. So with all that said, I hope you all continue to have an absolutely amazing evening watching movies, and happy viewing, true believers.
Fool can be killed by a shot in the head or a heavy blow to the skull.